What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 65 of The Unusual Suspects. Guys, I am back. How long was I gone, Cal? 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks in a couple days. I'm finally back. I miss you guys like crazy. I want to thank Rob. Rob Gargiulo was holding down the fort while I was gone, and I appreciate the hell out of you, Rob. We still did it via Zoom.
Yes.
I'm not a big,
Great. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And we also have Kelly on the ones and twos. Look at our Kelly cam. Where's our? Look at that. There's bushes in the back. What'd you call it, Rob, earlier?
Oh, she's in the enchanted forest.
Oh, she's just there's a weed plant back there. Kelly is living it up. But guys, thank you guys for joining us. I'm really, really excited. And guys, today's guest, let me explain something to you guys. It's rare where I'm like, wait a minute, this guy is like me, he's not talking about doing stuff. He's actually doing stuff. So let me give you guys his proper introduction. Our newest unusual suspect. He's a retired lieutenant colonel, Green Beret, guys. Served 25 years in the Department of Defense, Intel and Special Operations communities as an enlisted officer, civilian contractor, active duty, reserves. This guy is just absolutely ridiculous. He's a constitutional attorney, deep state marauder, and the secretary of Retribution. Ladies and gentlemen, Ivan Raiklin. Ivan, what's up, brother? Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Vincent. Absolutely fantastic. I see you need to get with the program and cut your hair a little bit so that you look like Rob and me.
I apologize, Ivan. I was talking with Rob about it. Rob has more
Kelly,
hair
if you want to join in too, I mean, that's on you, though.
Kelly can shave her head too. Ivan, Rob has more hair on his chin than everywhere on his entire body. It's actually pretty wild. But Ivan, can you do me a favor? Just for some of the people at home that don't know you, can you take a couple minutes, let everybody know who you are, Ivan, and what your mission is?
Yeah, so you kind of touched upon it. So I spent a quarter of a century in our national security ecosystem in different aspects, whether it was Intel, Special Operations, Green Beret, teaching intelligence analysis at the Defense Intelligence Agency, technology scout out in the Silicon Valley, Greater Bay Area, and then a national security attorney. All that in the collective, that experience basically put me in a position where when I observed the illegally conducted 2020 election and its subsequent illegal certification, and then the escalatory cover-up since then, it started off really in 2017 when I saw what they did to General Flynn. Something smelled fishy. And so I decided to go ahead and use my skill set, my network knowledge and expertise to start to dig on my own. And what I later found out was, yes, there is a deep state. And I can tell you each individual by name, date, place, transgression, category, section, division, department within our U.S. government and where they're currently physically located. Yes, physically located, so that we can start to action those particular individuals in the most legal, moral, ethical manner known in the history of mankind, so that they receive the necessary consequences in response to their treasonous activity.
Oh, and by the way, Ivan, I love the fact that you said it exactly the way it's supposed to be: peaceful, respectful, using the law. I mean, the other side uses the law because it's unbelievable. And Ivan, just really fast, and Rob,
the other side does not use the law. They do political violence, right?
I agree.
We don't do political violence.
No,
And I don't think they use the law. They abuse the law on that side. I think I hate to get into the sides, but I do believe that there are two different sides to this thing, and the good side uses the law and supports the law, and then the bad side abuses the law, abuses the people that are involved in law as well.
Well, because I was going to ask you, Ivan. So, and I'll get into this, and then remind me, Rob, because I want to ask Ivan about, because you said, because this isn't left or right, R or D. I think they're all on the same freaking team. But so you have a deep state target list, Ivan. That I remember it being at 350. Where are you at with the names now?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the left wing, domestic terrorist, radical left media outlets started off saying that it was 350. It's actually much more than that. And it's actually growing by the day with all of their, increasing transgressions. I'd say it's a little over 600 right now. And the reason it is growing is because, our research and my teams in research and investigation into their activity does not stop, right? So as we learn more and more, as they conduct attempted assassination attempts on presidents, as they murder other American citizens, as was done in Butler County, Pennsylvania, almost 2 weeks ago at this point, we identify those criminal actors within our government, affiliates to our federal government, and we shine the light on them so that we can then take that evidence and then come up with strategies within constitutional, authorities that can bring consequences to them. And I just got back last night from the Texas Sheriff's Association event. And I'll tell you this, I mean, over the last 2-3 days, our team kind of touched about 50 different sheriffs. And we gave them what I call a warning order, which was be prepared to start thinking about when Elon Musk shares his mother of all Twitter files evidence with the Attorney General Ken Paxton and chairman of the following House committees, Jim Jordan, Jim Comer, Barry Loudermilk, and when the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, starts to chime in, you're going to see the biggest trove of criminal evidence as it applies to every single individual on my deep state target list and beyond, based on the Twitter holdings that Elon's sitting on, as we showcase all of the conspiracies going back 10 years, starting with the illegal spying operation on General Flynn, Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, all of that. Because you got to remember that the Kamala Harris's comms team used to be senior execs over at Twitter 1.0. Imagine the emails that, the content of the emails there. Imagine the content of later on in 2018 when the former general counsel of the FBI, Jim Baker, is then picks up his next job, which is the number 2 lawyer at Twitter. Keep in mind that general counsel, when he was at the FBI, signed off on the illegal spying operation on the Trump campaign. And so I would like to see all of his internal emails, Twitter phones that all of his devices that he had, that Elon Musk has access to based on his communications using Twitter emails, internal Slack channel communications, as was disclosed with the Twitter files that they were using as they coordinated with government officials within the FBI to go ahead and censor American citizens and suspend individuals like Ivan Raiklin, who I believe as an individual account, I was number 18 most feared account that was exposing their criminal illegal behavior. And so as we put together, as we match the names with the conspiracy, with the Twitter holdings, whether it's email, Slack channels, or their internal direct messages, keep in mind, Jim Comey, the former director of the FBI, has a Twitter account, had a Twitter account. John Brennan, former CIA director, also with the Twitter account. So as you start to rack and stack name, Twitter account, and communications between them and their offices with Twitter employees, you will see the entire conspiracy laid out in its entirety by category. I just put together a list to make it so much easier for Matt Taibbi, Michael Schellenberger, Elon Musk, Attorney General Ken Paxton, Jim Jordan of the Weaponization or the Judiciary Committee, Jim Comer of the Oversight Committee, Barry Loudermilk of the Subcommittee on Oversight for House Admin, to go ahead and start to subpoena and look through all of that evidence so that we can then share that with the appropriate jurisdictions at the state level and at the county level. Because keep in mind, when you look at IP data, it shows the location of where that communication occurred. When you look at Twitter DMs and Twitter, you can identify at what time and what location that communication took place. So if it happened to take place in Texas, let's say one of those 600 people communicated a criminal communication in Texas, that means Attorney General Ken Paxton has jurisdiction. And now we can loop in everyone else under a RICO or a similar concept known as a conspiracy or RICO charge against all the rest of them, because the evidence will be there. And then we can start to delegate it down to, I don't know, certain counties within Texas and district's attorneys and their respective sheriffs, so that that district attorney can go ahead and use the precedent set by Alvin Bragg in Manhattan and Fannie Willis in Fulton. And then the sheriffs can use the objectively reasonable actions, similar to how Michael Byrd did when he shot at point blank Ashley Babbitt and conducted what's known to them as objectively reasonable actions to go ahead and action that individual known as Ashley Babbitt. They've set the precedent, gentlemen. Now it's time to follow the one-tiered justice system upon which they have laid out. Retribution is coming to the max. Okay. And they set the precedent.
I love it. Rob, you going to say something?
It's very interesting. You brought up something, Ivan. James Andrew Baker, the former general counsel for the Federal Bureau of Investigations. He worked for the FBI as a general counsel, Vinny, from 2014 until 2017. And then you're right. He goes and works. I had no idea. He went and worked as the deputy general counsel at Twitter.
To Vijaya Gadde. Remember when she had a meltdown when Elon bought Twitter?
Yes.
I wonder, hey, Vijaya, if you're listening in, I wonder why you had a meltdown. You know, and I know why you had that meltdown. Let me give the viewers and listeners a hint. You know exactly what Jim Baker was doing and the communications and the conspiracy to censor First Amendment violations, to go ahead and surveil Fourth Amendment violations, no due process for suspensions, nothing. You are going to be held criminally liable. And I get it. It's not going to be done by the DOJ because guess what? We are coming after the DOJ as well because they're criminally complicit. Who in the DOJ? A preponderance of those in the National Security Division. Who at the FBI? A preponderance of those in the National Security Branch. Which names, former and current? I'll name some names. Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, the former deputy director, Lisa Page, who was Andy McCabe's chief lawyer, counsel. Who else? Her little buddy, Pete Strzok. Pete Strzok's number 2 guy that interviewed General Flynn to get him to lie or to get him fired, according to the assistant director for counterintelligence, Bill Priestap's notes, as well as I'm talking about Pete Strzok and his buddy, Joe Pienta. Joe Pienta is still over at the San Francisco field office as we're conducting this interview and working with Elvis Chan, who was highlighted in the Missouri v. Biden censorship First Amendment lawsuit. Those were the individuals at FBI working with Jim Baker, working with the headquarters element over at the Foreign Influence Task Force, Brian Otten, Laura Demlow at the time. She's now actually the deputy for counterintelligence for all of the intelligence community up in Bethesda, Maryland. I know all of these people by name, date, place, and transgression. I know where they were, what they did, where they're currently physically located. And yes, I have their phone numbers, emails, cell phone, their physical address, both at work and their private residence. And I know exactly what vehicles they drive. Now, if you want to know what those are, I'm not going to dox them publicly, but on an individual level, if anybody listening in wants to know as much detail as possible that they want of any individual on my deep state target list, I would be happy to provide that to you. Again, got to follow the rule of law. I'm not doxing anyone, but I would be willing to stay up all night to iterate several 100,000 requests on individual names, dates, locations, and anything you want on the individual.
But by the way, I was waiting for like an opportunity. This is the exact Ivan, you are a genius without even knowing it. Guys, if you want to talk to my boy, Ivan Raiklin, okay, there's an app. He is on Minect right now. If you haven't downloaded it, guys, get on this QR code. Whatever you want to ask Ivan, military, deep state, anything that you want to know, public speaking, Green Beret, military, intel, the guy's a freaking instructor, please hit him up. He's on Minect right now. Ivan Raiklin, Raiklin.
Yeah, I did kind of tee that up pretty good, huh?
No, that was. Hey, and by the way, Ivan, we didn't plan it. You just started saying it. I'm like, well, guess what? He's on the app. So Ivan's on the app, guys. Download it. Rob's on there as well. If you guys want to talk to Rob Gargiulo, Rob's on there. Anything about this type of stuff as well, but production, studio, podcast, you name it. It was Kelly. Am I on there? And I'm on there as well, guys. I look way better right now because my hair is way more luxurious. Download it. Kelly, are you on there too? Kelly, are you on there?
Yeah,
okay, and then guess what? Kelly,
wavy.
the producer, production, anything that you want from Kelly, Kelly's on there as well, guys. Download the app. This app is blowing up. All right, back at it. So, Ivan, you have this
if
list.
I may, Vincent, if you want to make a free call, for example, I can give you the publicly facing phone number for our good buddy Joe Pientka III, who was one of the 2 agents that were deployed by the senior leadership of the FBI to try to entrap General Flynn. His office number, just ask for his name, okay. Joe Pientka III. It's 4. It'd be nice to get ask him the question, when are you going to go ahead and testify to your knowledge of the illegal spying operation? Because, and you can tell him, I've been listening to Ivan Raiklin. Ivan Raiklin thinks that Joe Pientka is the only one that basically didn't commit a crime. And so he's sitting as a whistleblower, as a coward whistleblower that knows exactly what happened with the illegal spying op on the Trump campaign. But yeah, he's hiding out, waiting for his retirement. I think it's time to move forward with your information, Mr. Pientka, because if not, again, you will be treated as a co-conspirator, sir.
So Ivan, just really quick, because we hear deep state. People, a lot of people don't. They just hear that word, they think conspiracy. The deep state, by definition, is just a group of individuals that are just embedded in government, in our society. Ivan, is there a ringleader of this deep state? Because everybody always wants to know, Ivan, who's in charge. You can't just have a bunch of people running around together. And I get it, Ivan. Evil has the leader. It's the devil. It's Satan himself. But have you found out from your research, Ivan, who sits at the top of the throne of this this cabal, this deep state establishment cabal? Do you know who it is?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like, are you talking on the global level or domestically here?
Let's
because
start
if you
domestic.
Look at the global level.
Let's start, who's running it here, and then please let me know who you think on the global level.
Yeah, so I mean, at the domestic level, some of the key players are obviously, and they have some reach internationally as well, is going to be your Beret Hussein, right? Beret Hussein, the 4th president.
Sweet.
And then you have other folks like your Bill Gates, and then they have that outreach with folks on the global scale. And John Brent, I already mentioned a few of them, right? John Brennan, Beret Hussein, Jim Comey. I mean, these are senior level officials within our most influential power structures in America, right? Whether it's the White House, whether it's the CIA with that global reach, whether it's the FBI. Now, in terms of data, content, and wealth, obviously, with the whole right, we have to be careful on how we call these things, because it's actually not the word that starts with the V.
Yes.
He was behind the promoting of the DNA mutilation injections, as well as the heart exploding products, right?
Yes.
Talking about Bill Gates.
Yep.
But when you go beyond that at the global level, China is definitely coming out as the global hegemon through its actions over the last few years. And then you have Xi, you have influence with good old Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum. You have, good old Soros that's trying to inject himself into the conversation. So I would say that those are some of the key players there. But my focus on the global scale, my focus has been on really exposing those domestically, because to get to those that are at the global level, my motto is, as the deep state marauder, the first thing that we must do is to castrate the deep state, and then we can crush the commies, meaning domestically the deep state, and then globally the commies, which are the Klaus Schwabs, the Xis and the Soroses of the world.
Got you.
So how do we go after the deep state? Well, you have to identify them by individual actor. And that's what I've proceeded to do. Again, I used to teach intelligence analysis for 3.5 years at the most preeminent kind of intel analysis program within the United States intelligence community. It was known as the Combined Strategic Intelligence Training Program. 7-week course, 40 hours a week, where I would lay out different things such as, here is our U.S. national security and intel apparatus, from top down, left, right, mission, roles, and responsibilities. From there, we went to discussing how to become a professional intelligence analyst. Then we would discuss how U.S. conducts intel support to multinational operations, whether it's U.S.-led or multilateral, etc. Then we went into other particular programs, but I would say that those are the key individual kind of components of that 7-week program. And I taught to members of the entire U.S. intelligence community, as well as our international partners. So I have a little insight and knowledge. With that background, I applied it into my personal capacity of answering the question of who was behind the electoral heist of 2020, who was behind the attempted takedown of General Flynn. So when I started to look into it, and so I started to come up with categories of deep state actors. And let's just start off with a couple of categories just to shine some light on the incestuous relationship that these players have. So let's go back to, remember the 39 individuals that were declassified by, at the time, acting director of national intelligence, Rick Grinnell, and his deputy was Kash Patel.
Was it unmasking? Unmasking?
That unmasked General Flynn to illegally spy on him in the 2016 to 2017 period of time. Well, one of those names was a gal by the name of Sarah Raskin.
Jamie Raskin's wife?
Jamie Raskin's wife.
Wow.
Yes, there's a relationship.
Oh, weird.
So now you see why Jamie Raskin is making comments to these leftard publication known as raw sewage or, smothered jokes or daily BS so that he can try to label me as, a threat to their democracy. Hey, Jamie, I am a threat, and I am a threat to your ability to continue to operate in a lawless fashion because I am going to expose you and you're going to be on the receiving end of treason at the end of this, okay? So, yes, I like to expose him. While he's promoting political violence, I'm trying to get him to stop that political violence and actually hold these political violent actors to account maximally. And yes, Jamie Raskin, I will continue to drop your name and expect you to be highlighted maximally by your colleagues in Congress. I got a commitment last week by at least one member that's going to call him out for his absolute BS. Another person, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, since we're on the subject, good old Benny Thompson, who used to be the chair of the Homeland Security Committee in the 117th Congress and was later the January 6th cover-up committee chair on behalf of Liz Cheney, Mike Pence's beloved Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi. I'm talking about Benny Thompson. He is now asking to be on a new committee that's going to be created to investigate the attempted murder and assassination of President Trump. That little kid, that chubby, I guess, is trying to be in that position to continue the cover-up. Now, again, like this interview is probably only going to go an hour. I can go into each one of these individuals probably in like 15 to 30 minutes on all the relationship. But one category is those 39. Another category was, remember the 51 that covered for the Biden criminal syndicate laptop?
The former intel agent, they were at Twitter. Well, they said that the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian disinformation.
Yeah, the letter was drafted by, was it Morrell?
Mike Morrell.
Mike Morrell.
He was a former acting director of the CIA. So when you look at the names and the backgrounds of all 51 of those, by the way, there were 60 total, 51 publicly disclosed, 9 not. I've identified one of those 9. But those are lower level figures that were in the system already, so they didn't want their names disclosed. I got it. One of the names that's not usually discussed, and I asked the question last week when Kash Patel was showing his movie, Government Gangsters, at the Q&A session. I said, Kash, great work. And one of the 3 names that's not really discussed much in this, as part of the government gangster or deep state crew is, I mentioned Sarah Raskin, right, Jamie?
Yep.
And then I also mentioned one of the 51 spies who lied was a guy by the name of David Buckley. Why is David Buckley important? Well, because he was the Inspector General for John Brennan's CIA. Before that, he was a staff director for the Democrat Intelligence Committee back in the day. And then furthermore, he was appointed as Benny Thompson's staff director to perpetuate the cover-up of the January 6th Fedsurrection. But more importantly, he was the guy that created the Patriot target list. So I'm using his precedent. Thanks, David, for creating that list. And now I'm going to use your precedent to place you on my deep state target list as we address you in kind, maximally, with maximum retribution and accountability. What does maximum mean? Well, maximum legal, moral, and ethical. Similar to how your buddy in an objectively reasonable manner dispensed with Ashley Babbitt. That would be a maximum consequence. But it would have to go through due process. Yep. We wouldn't do it in the manner that your former boss, John Brennan, did. We wouldn't order in a vigilante style without due process a drone to go ahead and summarily execute an American citizen overseas. No, we would do this through evidence collection, proper charging, and then you will receive the maximum consequence for your treason. That's the difference between you and us. Just like I think, was that Dr. Dre song?
Which one?
What's the difference between me and you?
Me and you, exactly.
Yeah, we're coming for all of them.
Hey,
and the third name, what about the General Counsel of the U.S. Capitol Police? He's the guy that decided to charge. So it was David Buckley that created the list of who to go after. And then the general counsel of the Capitol Police, Thomas Aquinas de Bias, would then charge these J6 defendants and send over the criminal manipulated charge sheet over to Matt Graves at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. So when you follow that sequence of events and all these players down to the individual level, down to the pixel level, they don't like that. And that's when they start to send their radical leftard organizations to try to do hit pieces on me. And in fact, they conducted 20 investigations of me, leveraging their Department of Defense, their DHS, their DOJ. But here's the problem, Vincent. When you investigate me and you're in the government, I've been in the system long enough and I know it well enough. I immediately get alerted by those folks that know me.
Great.
Who is investigating me.
Nice.
Which triggers my team's investigation of them.
Nice.
And at every point in time, I've been able to get dirt and unlawful activity on each one of them. So you don't want to be on my list. You know how people say, oh, aren't you afraid you're going to be on FBI list? No. They should be afraid of me. Homie, don't play that, and they will receive maximum consequences for violating my rights and all of our rights. And there's two options. Either in the game of chicken, there's two options when I play. I either win or you lose. And part of you lose may mean mutually assured destruction, which I'm okay with because my kids don't have to deal with these scum.
Nice.
That'll be maximum win.
I think Rob has a question.
So, Ivan, question for you, because it is 600. Your list is 650. And if anything, it's not something that started in 2016 or started with Michael Flynn or General Flynn. It started, it seems like there's always been this secretive underlying government at play throughout United States history. So it's almost like cyclical. It's almost like it's a group that you're brought into, like a fraternity, a weird, evil fraternity, where they bring you in and then you're a member, and then as you get older and you expire, they bring in new members. So if it's a 650 person deep state, that's how many members
that keeps growing.
Continues to grow and continues to bring in new members. How I know Trump has talked about draining the swamp and defeating the deep state, and I know that you have the list of 650. How do you weed out and start to remove these people from their positions of power so that you completely eradicate it? Because I feel like a lot of the criticism that President Trump has received from his first go at being president was that he didn't drain the swamp. But I don't know if he actually understood the significance of what he was getting involved in when he signed up for the job. Yes, running the country, but I really don't think the majority of Americans understood that there was a deep state. Despite the Zapruder film, despite the questions about 9/11, despite the questions about COVID-19, it really took Donald Trump getting part of his ear shot off in Butler, Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago for a good number of Americans to wake up and go, oh, there are evil forces at play. So that being said, President Trump wasn't able to do it in his first term because he really didn't understand the sheer magnitude of what he was undertaking. This go-round, if you were to be an advisor to him, how do you go in after you're elected January 2025 and you start to dismantle this structure that has been built over the past 200 years within our government, but acting against the best interests of the American people?
Great question. I got to divide this up into 3 points. Number one, how far does this go back? You started off with the conversation. I can take you back in detail back to 1973 with the junior senator from Delaware, right? And how he served on the Senate Judiciary Committee that then created the FISA court, the original one. And then we can take and step it through back into the early 2000s. I'm not going to go into those details. I've done really long form podcasts going into that level of detail. Whether it's, you can go to my Rumble channel and look at the longer form podcasts, the ones that are hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. It goes into the entire history of the deep state, specifically 50 years. Now, the political party structure in America goes back to the 1830s was the Democrat Party, and then 1854 was when the Republican Party was created. So 99% of political power in this country has rested with two institutions, essentially, the Democrat and Republican Party, going back to those, arguably to 1854, right? And with the first president under the Republican banner would have been Lincoln. So that's kind of like the context of it. The second piece, what you're talking about, is during the first term of President Trump, the reason why he was not able to proverbially drain the swamp is because, one, he didn't know the level of detail of who, what, when, where, and why, like the whole components of what the government looks like and who the criminal actors were. And they were able to buy time by removing the one trusted close advisor that was with President Trump, and that was General Flynn. And so they've been able to buy time because they've removed those individuals that would be able to create consequences to the deep state. General Flynn, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, I mean, everybody that's been weaponized against, it's specifically deliberate because those are the individuals in the best position to come after these scum, to do the proverbial castration of the deep state. And so now, after 4 years and almost 4 years now, kind of observing and learning as well externally, I think President Trump is in a different position where he has learned, along with, you have Kash Patel advising him, Devin Nunes. Those are probably two individuals that understand the most of these individuals, right, that are in close proximity to President Trump. So now he's in a position, should he come back into office, right? I mean, they're not going to let him in, first of all.
Yeah.
I think there's really only one play that guarantees his return. We can talk about that at the end. But I don't know if right now people are ready for that methodology. It's legal, moral, ethical, constitutionally. But let's just make the assumption that he comes back in under kind of my play, because I think the other plays will not work. And my advice would be as follows. You have to there has to be a federated policy where the federal government and the states, through all of its institutions, starts to declassify everything, right? As it applies to the domestic kind of activity that's been occurring with the violation of different civil rights. I think when you declassify the assassinations of Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, John F. Kennedy, when you start to disclose all of that, you will start to peel the onion, and you're going to start to see names of individuals with last names at the highest levels that their family members are still in the political circuit. They will be exposed. And as America learns outside of the censorship regime, because they've been able to survive because of the censorship and the cover-ups, once we're able to break through fully, Elon's doing a great job with, right? We got Truth Social, you got Getter, you got Gab, you got Rumble, right? Those Substack, those platforms allow us to expose reality. Once we bankrupt Facebook, Insta Garbage, CommieTube, Roytards, Raw Sewage, Washington Compost, New Woke Slimes, that's when they will no longer be in a position to create the false narrative and cover up for their transgressions. And that's when the American jury pool will be demanding that something be brought forward through their elected representatives, known as the district attorney, known as the sheriff, so that when it comes into the trial at the state level, they are ready to convict. Like they'll go through voir dire and jury selection. The defense will not find a single person that will say, no, you're going down. You are going down because the evidence has been presented to the entire country. And that's when the cleansing can start.
Ivan, so I want to get into the assassination attempt and all that stuff, this craziness that's happened over the past 2 weeks. But you were talking about, so Crossfire Hurricane was the illegal spying campaign on Trump and Carter Page, General Flynn, George Papadopoulos. I heard you speak on this once before, Ivan. I just want to make sure I'm right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but because it was along the lines of why he's such a threat, why they have to try to kill him. And I think you mentioned the fact that the Mar-a-Lago raid by the FBI, I'm using your acronym, was to seize the evidence that was declassified by Trump on his last few hours in his first term, which involved everything, which involved all the spying, all the everything. Is that one of the main reasons, Ivan, why he is such a threat? Why they have to try to take him out? And I do want to hear your thought on the next move. But yeah, what do you think? Is that one of the main reasons why he's such a threat to the deep state?
Short answer, absolutely. Let me go into a little bit more detail and context.
Yes.
So, a couple data points. And you can look all this up, producer, whatever. I mean, you can fact check, law check everything I'm about to say. So Mark Meadows, who was President Trump's last chief of staff towards the end of his first term, in the last few hours, declassified quite a bit of things. Well, not him, but President Trump authorized the declassification under his authority as the president. Everything related to Crossfire Hurricane.
Good.
What does that involve? When you look at everything related to Crossfire Hurricane, that would mean the Sentinel system at the FBI, which captures every single keystroke of official actions by the FBI. Okay. Well, what does that mean? That means that we're going to find out exactly who was manipulating the original, what's called the FD 302, that was the notes that was put into digital form of the interview conducted by the FBI's Pete Strzok and Joe Pientka with General Flynn, where they said that he wasn't lying, but it was later Andy McCabe's lawyer, who was also the lover of Peter Strzok, one of those two guys, that later in August of 2017 started to move to manipulate that original FD 302 to make it look like General Flynn was fired. And that was used by the Mueller team to go ahead and coerce General Flynn into a guilty plea, along with them saying that we're going to use our unlimited budget to go after your son that just had his own first child. And if you don't plead guilty, we will do everything in our power to get your son. This is mob boss tactics, right? What else is going to be found in the declassified Crossfire Hurricane documents? They're going to find out that Joseph Pientka III, who we referred to earlier, testified before the Senate in 2020, Senate Judiciary. And you're going to find in his notes and interactions likely that he did not believe General Flynn was lying when he was there interviewing him. But in fact, he was given, he being Pientka, was given a thing called a Woods file. That's the file that is used to present before the FISA court to then open the spying operation on Carter Page, which launched the spying op into the Trump campaign. Joseph Pientka, through his interactions within the official channels, you're going to find the following data set. Two things. One, the original Woods file, which was signed off by the FBI director, has been destroyed, but we're going to be able to find it. And why was it destroyed? It's because it was a fraudulent FISA Woods file request of the FISA court. Why? Because one of the other lawyers, Kevin Kleinsmith at the FBI, doctored an email that was sent to him by his counterpart at the CIA when Kevin asked, hey, is Carter Page doing debriefs after his trips to Russia for his private capacity oil and gas deals? That CIA officer said, actually, well, in this instance, it would have been the CIA officer said, yes, Carter Page is doing everything by the book and reporting back to us. The FBI lawyer, Kevin Kleinsmith, changes that to a no, uses that document to then inform the senior intel analyst on Crossfire Hurricane, a dude by the name of Brian Auten, to then use to then create this false fraudulent Woods file with his assessment that there needs to be an opening of a FISA warrant on Carter Page so that they could spy on Carter Page, everyone he talks to, and everyone that they talk to, meaning the entire Trump campaign. That is just the minimum of what's going to be disclosed with what was declassified by President Trump and Mark Meadows. And so for the FBI to protect itself and all the names that I mentioned and then some, they had to raid Mar-a-Lago so that President Trump could not use that evidence in his lawsuit against the criminal, or the lawsuit, the RICO lawsuit that President Trump did against the very DOJ and the FBI, based on the evidence that he declassified.
Yeah.
They were done.
Yeah, go ahead,
And
Rob.
then in addition to that, General Flynn filed a $20 million civil lawsuit against the same individuals, which is still an open case that we're waiting on the judge to allow the case to move forward in Florida. If it does, the very first person to be subpoenaed is going to be Joe Pientka. And number 2 is going to be Mikey Pence.
Mikey.
Why Mikey Pence? Because Mike Pence's chief of staff during this period of time was Josh Pitcock, married to Catherine Seaman, who was the senior Russia analyst for Pete Strzok, one of the 2 agents sent to go ahead and get General Flynn to lie or to get him fired. You see how incestuous all this is and why they fear me? Because
you got receipts.
all.
Ivan, you have receipts.
and that raid, by the way, the classified documents raid, remember, those charges have been dropped by the judge here in Florida. I know that there was a move to try and
For Jack Smith, yeah, they tried to bring it back, but it's not going to happen.
But that was the same raid, Ivan, where the FBI...
But Jack Smith wants it dropped.
Yeah,
because the DOJ doesn't want the case to move forward because it's going to expose everything.
Yeah.
But that's the same raid.
General Flynn's case is really important to proceed.
Yeah,
and that's the same raid that the FBI authorized the use of deadly force when they went to a former president's
that was
house.
The first attempt at assassination during that raid.
And I have this, and it's from the
Great point.
It's from Newsweek, so you can believe whatever you would like to. But here's a quote from the article: FBI was prepared to use deadly force at Mar-a-Lago raid. This is May 22nd. Agents plan to bring standard issue weapons, ammo, handcuffs, and medium and large size bolt cutters when they raided Mar-a-Lago. So they went in there, weapons drawn, ready for a case that they ended up dropping anyway.
Yeah.
Think
now
about that.
You understand why I label the America's biggest threat domestic terrorist organization is the FBI. And the biggest scum warlord currently in our borders is Christopher Ray Epps. Yes, pronounced Christopher Ray Epps, the current domestic terrorist organization warlord who heads the FBI.
He's actually in front of Congress today too, Ivan.
Sorry?
He went in front of Congress today. I'm sorry to cut you off. He's in front of Congress today speaking of the assassination attempt. And yeah, I don't try that guy. That guy turned down one of the most lucrative job offers just to go to the FBI and have that job of power doing exactly what he's doing. So
since we're talking about Chris Wray and he's on my list, obviously.
Yeah.
You know that he was Chris Christie's lawyer during Bridgegate?
He was Chris Christie's lawyer?
Yeah, during Bridgegate scandal.
Oh, damn. I didn't even know that.
And another data point, it should start to kind of make things make sense here as it applies to Chris Christie and why he did what he did over the last year and a half as it applies to running for president, etc. The other component that you need to be aware of is Christopher Wray was a partner at King and Spalding at the same time that Sally Yates, the former acting attorney general during this whole Crossfire Hurricane op, was the acting AG. Sally Yates, Chris Wray, this is all incestuous generational relationship corruption that at this point, I could care less what they do to me because they're coming down with me if they go and choose that path.
Ivan, since we touched on the assassination attempt, which I think this was, you think about it. If you want to talk about a coup, I mean, the first one being Russian collusion and all the stuff that followed, impeachment, all that stuff. I just want to know.
Impeachment hoax 1, impeachment hoax 2. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and the list is just, I mean, for people that are still naive to the fact, I mean, and we have some of
those are some of the categories on my list. Like when you say impeachment hoax 1, I have a list of people that we need to address as it relates to that, both staff and principals. Impeachment hoax 1, by the way, the impeachment manager for impeachment hoax 1, it was Adam Bolshev. Why? Because right after the failed Mueller investigation, that's when Sean Misko left the National Security Council to be a staffer for Adam Bolshev so that he could facilitate the impeachment along with whistleblower Eric Ciaramella and his Vindman twin traitor brothers, Alexander and Yevgeny. Yep. Alexander now blocks me on X after I only commented once in his profile.
Yeah,
and then you have Sean Misko, Alexander, Yevgeny Vindman, Eric Ciaramella, and their attorneys, Andrew Bakaj, Mark Zayed. They need to be disbarred and then prosecuted criminally for their treasonous activity. But I go on a tangent. I'm sorry. I can go into detail on every one of these scum because I spent 10,000 hours plus.
No, it's all good.
Investigating.
No, it's all good, Ivan. So Ivan, about the assassination attempt. I mean, listen, I know that Kim Cheadle just resigned yesterday. I know that we're never going to get the real answers. There's stuff popping up left and right. He was by himself.
It's pitiful. She's going to resign for attempted assassination?
She was she resigned yesterday.
That's all you're going to get for an attempted assassination of a president?
Because you know, I say, Ivan, I go, listen, God forbid they killed him. Besides a civil war, that'd be the exact thing that would happen. She would just resign, and the buck stops with her. She's in charge. That's it. Nobody talks about it, and people just keep pointing fingers.
Not in my department of retribution. We're getting started.
Yeah. What's that noise, Cal? Can you have somebody go tell them to shut it off? Okay. So anyway, sorry, Ivan. So Ivan, in regard to the assassination attempt, and again, people say that we're crazy, but you have receipts and you have high knowledge in this, and me and Rob are on the same boat. How feasible is it? And I kind of know where you're going to be going, but I want to know what you think. How feasible is it that the FBI, the CIA, was involved? I'm talking about MK Ultra, because obviously, if you think about it, all the facts are starting to line up. This kid, 20 years old, nobody, no social media, everything was wiped. Offshore accounts. He bought a ladder. He was up there. Everything pointed to the fact that this was allowed to happen. It wasn't incompetence. It looked like well orchestrated negligence. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? What do you think happened? And do you think, because we still have a couple months left, are they going to try to do something like that again?
Mm-hmm. So everything that they've been doing from the onset is an escalatory cover-up of that initial spying operation like I talked about. They know that they're going to be held to account. So the only way that they survive is to make sure that President Trump does not return into office, which meant starting with a stolen election in 2020, right? Then the illegal certification on January 6th. Then when Kevin McCarthy and Mike Pence's chief of staff, Mark Short, were briefed by me to go ahead and rule on the objections by state delegation, Nancy Pelosi immediately facilitated the breach into the Capitol to frame it as an insurrection. And then the cover-up continued. And so they're doing and I said this in February, and people are coming after me and attacking me for even mentioning it. I said that as soon as they're going to try lawfare, they're going to do all this stuff, most probable courses of action. But as soon as the deep state, and I got all the names, realizes they cannot block Trump from securing the Republican nomination, that's when they're going to go into assassination mode. So just like clockwork, when they saw that it would be guaranteed that he's securing the nomination, and we stopped the convention delegates from the establishment ones from contemplating conducting a coup within the convention, that's when the Benny Thompsons of the world, the Cheadles of the world, the Chris Rays of the world pulled off of their shelf. How did we as our institutions did in the 1960s? How should we do it to Donald Trump? Because he is an existential threat to them for their criminal, lawless behavior. And then if he comes back in, they're not going to be able to protect the Biden criminal syndicate anymore. They're not going to be able to protect the Clinton criminal syndicate, right? And all the other ones. And so nothing is off the table. And it is by God's grace. We are in the best case scenario right now. And a failed attempted assassination where we get to expose everyone involved in it is literally the fastest path to retribution. Because had they been successful in the assassination, then the pre-programming that they've been infusing America with the movies, Civil War, etc., they would have created that. But because they failed, now it's time. It woke up so many people that have been asleep at the wheel, and now we can continue that exposure. Now, he needs to be safe. I never advocate for political violence. If he can survive this electoral cycle, and Elon Musk participates, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, even Patrick Bet-David, if he can understand, and you guys can understand, that the way we guarantee a successful reelection that is free, fair, honest, and transparent is when we educate the country to demand that their state legislatures allocate their electors by state legislative mandate, meaning under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2. That will circumvent all of the illegalities of our current electoral system. Because right now we have illegals voting. We have foreign manipulation. We have software fraud, retail fraud, wholesale fraud, machine fraud, and manipulation. The way we circumvent all of that is that, let's say on November 5th, we just have our state legislatures convene and do a live stream on X and Rumble, etc., C-SPAN for that matter, where you see your representative at the state level voting on which electors they want their state to transmit to the seat of government at the federal government level, meaning the president of the Senate. And if we use that framework, right now, Republicans control 274 electoral votes. That is the guaranteed path to not only a reelection, but it also is the guaranteed path to avoid all levels and layers of fraud. And it guarantees 100% transparency, because you know how many people can vote, the registered voter class, you know who's registered under what party, and you get to actually see them stand up and vote.
Yeah.
That is the only guaranteed path for a pristine, safe, free, fair, transparent presidential and vice presidential election. Absent that, they will not let Trump back into office.
Ivan, so going back, do you think, Ivan, I know who the enemy is, and I never underestimate them. They are very, very desperate at this point. You know, in 1963, Zapruder, one camera, whatever. I think there was another camera. Easy, done deal. 60 years later, we still have no answers. We know what the hell these documents have. That's why, Trump didn't even want to release them. But they're getting balls.
It might have the name Bush in it.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that may be why.
Yeah, weird. But Ivan, I don't think they're done. I think there's like you said, and I've said this many times, Ivan, they cannot let him win. I've said it on the show. Rob has been my witness. Kelly has seen it. I've been saying it forever. Then the assassination attempt. 2 questions, Ivan. Do you think if a window, an opportunity comes about, they will try? I know people would lose their freaking minds, but that's what they want. They want chaos. And number 2, if they don't go through with that, do you believe in something like you mentioned Civil War, the other movie, Leave the World Behind, a cyber attack, something to keep the election from happening, to keep it in the Democrats' hands? Do you think something like that's possible?
Yeah, like I said before, nothing is off the table for them. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that they will not allow, at all costs, right? At all costs, they're going to not allow President Trump to come back. That is why I've kind of formulated this strategy of how do we still create a system where we start to move back into some semblance of normalcy. It's 2-pronged. We have to get, so like when Elon Musk is subpoenaed by the Attorney General Ken Paxton, and we start to divvy up that criminal evidence by county, we will start to dismantle the individuals within the deep state that are on my deep state target list, thus weakening their ability to continue to run rampant and roughshod over all of our rights and the state's rights. That's number 1. Number 2, the way we circumvent pretty much every, short of an assassination, if he stays alive, the way we get him back into office is through state legislatures allocating their electoral votes. It circumvents every layer of fraud, and it also circumvents Paul Ryan, who sits on the board of Faux News. Remember, it was Faux News that bribed, some people pronounce invest. It was Faux News that settled $850 million worth into deviant voting systems, so that deviant voting systems could create an electoral outcome of Paul Ryan's choosing in 28 states, upon which deviant voting systems has a foothold in the electoral cycle. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if you were to read the settlement, it would be interesting to see whether or not it included things such as, here's $850 million. Publicly, we're going to say that we were wrong in everything. Tucker Carlson lied on everything. Everything is pristine in the electoral system, and you're going to guarantee that Trump loses. Deal? Wow. They do the handshake. Wow. Done. And that's why I'm advocating. It doesn't matter if you clean up the voter rolls. It doesn't matter if you shore up everything. All it requires is a few lines of code in order to create a result that you need, because you're not going to be able to outvote the cheat. You can't outvote an algorithm, because you cannot create more humans than a line of code can create ballots. The only way you do that legally, morally, and ethically is when you educate the country that the last several elections, based on all the Twitter holdings that Elon should be releasing here shortly, shows the illegal activities of these elections. And so when 100% of the country is like, oh, wow, our system's a completely shit show, and they're going to demand a solution. The only solution that I can think of is for people to demand their state legislatures to go ahead and vote by state legislative body. Do you think that a rhino, toxic, feckless, stone cold coward, gutless simp Republican that is in on this fraudulent scheme is going to stand up where the entire planet sees how they vote and they're going to vote for the Democrat nominee? You think that they're going to survive the scrutiny of their constituents back in their home district? Again, this is a state rep that lives in that district. You think that the businesses that voted for him, that supported him, do you think that the people that supported their friends, family, the broader network in their community, you think that they're going to be able to withstand that scrutiny to vote for the Democrat, even if they're in on it? I don't think so. That's why I say that, especially after the failed attempted assassination attempt, the only path for a guaranteed free, fair, transparent election is for these state legislatures to go ahead and hold that roll call vote live streamed and allocate their electors, and they will not deviate from who their political party affiliation is, no matter how much faux news wants to manipulate their ideology behind it with Paul Ryan, and no matter how much anyone else wants to censor it out. Because, again, if we get Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Patrick, some others, key influencers, to understand this, I think that's how we guarantee success. And all President Trump has to do, he doesn't have to even campaign. Those influencers can do it for him. He just has to stay alive, get elected under that framework, and then that's it. Then we get to work. We go to town at the county level and at the federal level against everyone on my deep state target list.
I love it. Well, Rob, what are you going to ask?
Well, how do you keep the president safe? That because yesterday it came out, this was according to the New York Post, that they have the Secret Service has now, after they botched and almost allowed, the worst part of it is if they weren't complicit, then they're either completely retarded and incapable of protecting people, or the other awful option, Ivan, is that they were complicit in allowing the assassination to happen, or even worse, they orchestrated it. None of it looks good for the Secret Service. The Secret Service.
I think there's more and more evidence to support that latter hypothesis, just like there's more and more overwhelming evidence to support that it was an intentional, deliberate, facilitated, instigated breach of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. And oh, by the way, I've done a call out. If you're in the federal government and not a principal on my deep state target list, I'll get to your kind of comment. If you're on that as a staff or a subordinate, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, and you're sitting on evidence knowing exactly what happened, and you don't come out as a whistleblower by September 3rd, we will treat you as co-conspirators. And guess what? I just got contacted today by a massively high-ranking official. I'm not going to say where, that is literally coming out. And this is just not the first. Since I've put out that tweet and call out, I'm getting hit up by a lot of people asking, hey, can you give me advice on how I should provide this evidence and to whom? And I laid it out perfectly in the sense of DOJ. If you're within the DOJ and you're ready to whistleblow because you're seeing the writing on the wall, because we're going to come after you, you know that it is inevitable. So now you're trying to save your own skin. Please do. We will spare you. And if you're within the DOJ, you go to Jim Jordan and you CC me. If you're within the White House, former, current, you go over to Jim Comer. If you're over at the DHS and you want to whistleblow as it relates to January 6th specifically, then you go over to Mark Green and Barry Loudermilk, and then you CC me on everything. So there are more whistleblowers. And as it comes to the Secret Service, I recommend you CC Dan Bongino and you go ahead and send Mark Green, the House Homeland Security Chair, because Secret Service falls under DHS, to start providing your whistleblower insider information, because I suspect not everybody was involved in the failed assassination attempt. And there's going to be some people, I even know some of them, I'm going to reach out to them today, You better start identifying who was in on it and who wasn't, and making sure that you weren't in on it. Because if you were, I don't care if we have an election, well, I shouldn't say I don't care. It doesn't matter if we have an election, and it doesn't matter if President Trump comes back into office. It helps. Don't get me wrong. It's massively helpful. At this point, America is ready to create consequences at the county and state level for all of these scum, and it is coming. September 3rd, I think, is going to be a very spicy day.
I think so. When it comes to getting to November is kind of my concern, because we saw what happened on July 13th. There is clearly, I mean, it's not the first assassination attempt of Donald Trump. The question becomes, yesterday the New York Post issues a report from the Secret Service in which the Secret Service now admits that they cannot do their job. Our tax dollars are going to waste, because they're saying that it is not safe for Donald Trump to continue to do outdoor rallies. So they are now coming out and saying the job that we're being paid to do to protect a former president of the United States, the leading candidate for the Republican Party, 3 months away from an election cycle, we can't protect them. We can't do our jobs. Your tax dollars are going to waste. The only way for Trump to be able to campaign is from the confines of closed indoor environments. That is everything that is against what Donald Trump stands for, and it's everything that MAGA stands against. I don't know if you've ever been to one of these rallies, Ivan, but they're patriotic. People have compared them to, the people that are critical of Donald Trump and critical of people who support Donald Trump, they tend to group everybody into this one camp of MAGA, that you're there and you're acting like this is the Mecca and it's the second coming of Christ, when a lot of people that go to these events are there because they're patriots, because they're fed up, because they're angry. Some of them are like me, former Democrats who voted for Joe Biden. And I apologize, Ivan, I did in 2020. I wasn't awake. I'm awake now, and I understand the consequences of my actions.
I'm glad you mentioned that. If I may, real quick, just interject. The reason why you were supportive of Joe Biden is because the very FBI censored, curated, and manipulated your feed through censorship, hook, line, and sinker to lead you to believe what you believed at that time. And the names of those individuals were Laura Demlow, Brian Auten over at headquarters. In San Francisco field office, this has jurisdiction over interacting and influencing big tech writ large, was Joe Pientka, Elvis Chan. And then over at Twitter 1.0, the embed, if you will, was that Jim Baker, as they coordinated and facilitated not only within Twitter, but the broader fake book. Remember when Joe Rogan was interviewing Mark Zuckerberg? And Mark Zuckerberg said, a couple of FBI agents told us to stand down on the Biden criminal syndicate laptop and basically censor it. I wonder who those two names are. Laura Demlow, do you know? Brian Auten, do you know? How about Joe Pientka and Elvis Chan? Do you know? They know that I know. Now everyone knows. Hey, Mark Zuckerberg, you were duped and you were manipulated, whether if you were operating in good faith, that is. I'm not sure if he was operating, but let's just assume he was operating in good faith. He was utilized to censor and cover for the Biden criminal syndicate laptop. And guess who was the intel analyst charged for the intake of that Biden criminal syndicate laptop to investigate it? Brian Auten. You want his address? You want his phone number? You want his vehicle make, model, and type? He's about 10 physical miles from where I'm currently located. I'll be happy and honored to provide his details and where he goes shopping and his pattern of life every day.
And I agree. Listen, I fell victim to the propaganda. They did
for Joe Biden. You get me riled up, bro.
No, I love it.
And Ivan, you're 100% right. I fell victim to propaganda. They hid him from me, right? Like, I didn't see Joe Biden out making speeches. So when there was this narrative that,
right, and the reason why Secret Service said you can't protect Donald Trump, it's because they don't want him campaigning with. At this point, he's going to have hundreds of thousands of attendees, not tens of thousands. Yep. And they can't muster up that many human beings for Mamala Harris. By the way, her nickname's Mamala, which in Spanish means suck it. Yes, it does.
So my question was, and I agree with you, because the problem becomes, and this is what I'm worried about. Now that Kamala is out there and she is the nominee, or they're speculating that she will be, Trump does still need to campaign. Going to this election cycle, Ivan, how do you believe that they keep Trump safe? Is it, we've talked about Eric Prince, probably like the probability of bringing in a private military company to protect the president, but like, how do we actually get this guy to be safe until November? What can Americans do? What can his own team do to keep him
That's
safe?
a good point. I think at this point, he needs to have protection from our federal government that is supposedly tasked to protect him.
Yes.
Because let's face it. Let's go up the chain of command. Secret Service works for Ali Mayorkas.
Yeah.
Ali Mayorkas works for the belligerent, illegitimate, lawless executive branch resident at this point that has dementia, and whoever is puppet mastering him, Obama, right?
Yep.
So if Obama wants to put out the hit job and Benny Thompson wants to pull Secret Service, like all these dynamics, everyone knows it for what it is. Benny Thompson, you're behind the assassination of Donald Trump. We will treat you accordingly in kind, okay? Ali Mayorkas, you were behind the attempted assassination of President Trump. Same thing with you, Joe Biden. And so America needs to respond to that in kind. Just like I said in the in my Alex Jones interview, that people were like, oh my God, you can't talk about that subject. Well, guess what? I'm warning America. I'm warning the Secret Service. And apparently it was an inside job by the Secret Service, because that's really the only mechanism that they had to try to do it. So I'll say this. At this point, Eric Prince would be a good person to go ahead and have. He can put together a package. I think at this point, we need to monitor, and I'm creating a new category known as July 13th. I will be personally creating a new deep state target list category, July 13th, and we're going to identify every single person that was a government employee on that day and everyone they communicated with and their superiors. And we're going to start to use all technology available to extract all communications that were done in the run-up to, on, and the subsequent cover-up conversations, so that we can start to see exactly who was involved in the deliberate, intentional lapse in security at a minimum, or deliberate assassination attempt of President Trump. We're not going to, it's not going to be sufficient for you to resign. You don't just resign for attempted murder and murder. Keep in mind, one individual was murdered and there were 3 attempted murders. The president, 2 other individuals that attended the rally, and 1 was murdered. So everyone at this point is a co-conspirator. You don't have immunity because you are a belligerent, lawless, and illegitimate executive branch actor of our federal government. Butler County Sheriff needs to go ahead and take lead on that investigation, and every resident of Butler County, Pennsylvania, needs to participate in exposing every single federal government gangster involved in the failed assassination attempt, and they need to start holding them to account maximally. We need to look up who that sheriff is, and then the district attorney, and we need to start applying the necessary, let's just say, motivation, so that takes place ASAP.
Well, I want to ask one last thing, and then probably if you have something at the end of this, I want you to ask as well too. Just wrapping up, Ivan, you've mentioned Elon Musk's name multiple times. I've heard it, in other interviews, and why, especially with the Twitter fires and everything that he has, why is he so reluctant? Has he been asked? Because I know with Matt Taibbi and Schellenberger, they tried blowing the whistle. They went in front of Congress, and obviously the Democrats make them out to be these horrible, horrible Trump-loving people, even though they're just trying to whistleblow and expose the truth. Why is he so reluctant, and he hasn't done it yet, Ivan? And is he going to do it, or is it going to take a subpoena with Paxton and everything to have him to come in there to release it? Because he's holding back. And Ivan, and I'll let you answer. He's gone from, to me, a Democrat in the past couple of years, Rob, Elon Musk now is conservative. I guess reports came out that I don't think he was going to donate the $45 million. I heard something that it's not happening, but he's sounding more and more like a conservative. He just got interviewed with Jordan Peterson. And he's saying that the woke mind virus, he wants to eliminate it. It killed his son. And by the way, Patrick, as you know, Ivan, he wrote a book called Choose Your Enemies Wisely. He's chosen his enemy. He knows exactly who the hell the enemy is, and I almost feel like he wants to put them out there and wants to release the Twitter files, because that thing right there will literally flip the system upside down. What are your thoughts?
Fantastic question. Probably the most important question and discussion we're going to have. So I would look at it slightly differently than what you framed it as in this way. Let's take a look at the indicators of what Elon Musk has been doing as it applies to what I call the mother of all Twitter files. Big thing. He has almost 24 Twitter files that have been released, right? It takes time to look into things, put it together, assess it, analyze it, and then publish it for consumption to the broader public, right?
Yes.
That's number one. So he's already given indications that he's willing to go to bat to expose the truth, right? Mm-hmm. Number two, massively important to understand. Last week, he moved his headquarters of basically all of his business holdings from California to Texas. Now, he said he did that because of the different law and the woke mind virus. And I suspect that because of what happened to him personally and to his son, I take him for his word. I mean, that's a good faith response. And you can see the emotion in his eyes during that interview with Jordan Peterson. When I heard that component, I'm thinking to myself, he's all in. And what does all in mean? What he says publicly of First Amendment, exposing the truth. I take him for his word, and his actions are following with his words, because he's moved. He has created an infrastructure where the left has no leverage over him.
Yep.
Let's go through those. He moved all of his assets from California to Texas. That's massive. Number two, he has basically, with the Twitter files, exposed a lot of the media. In some of his posts, let's go review some of his key critical posts. His pronouns are prosecute Fauci, meaning he's sitting on the Fauci files, which exposes the whole COVID con. One of the critical components of COVID con is that the official fact checker for Twitter 1.0 was Reuters, right? Reuters. And the CEO of Reuters, I think James Smith, was on the board of Pfizer. So you start to understand why the censorship industrial complex was acted the way they did, where any therapeutic information on ivermectin, etc., was tamped down. And everything that said it was safe and effective, and then the clot shots, the DNA mutilation injections, were the best thing ever in the history of humanity. It's because good old boy Reuters CEO / the biggest distributor of DNA mutilation injections, who's on the board of that company. It's all interconnected. And then Elon Musk put out a post also in this December 22 timeframe that said Twitter is not only a social media company and a crime scene.
Wow.
Elon Musk knows that he's sitting on the biggest trove of evidence of criminal activity across the board of anyone in the history of humanity. Okay? Mm-hmm. By him going all in and supporting President Trump, that means he is now the only way that he survives, in my opinion. When I say survive, I mean what I say.
Yes.
The only way he survives, business-wise, physiologically, is for him to release every single thing he is sitting on, which is why it matches exactly with my deep state target list. I'm just basically, as a former insider, I'm laying it out to make it easy. I'm communicating with Taibbi, with Schellenberger to a lesser degree, and we're discussing what is the next path forward. And as you start to think through this strategy of, if he's all in and all of his holdings are in Texas, now the Attorney General of Texas has jurisdiction over all of that criminal evidence. See how this is playing out?
Yeah, good point.
So for him to say that he's hesitant, reticent, and not really releasing it, he's literally taking all the proper and necessary steps for maximum protection for himself and maximum exposure to those on the deep state. And for those that are saying, he's not going to donate $45 million a month to the Trump campaign, how much value does his mother of all Twitter files release in terms of billions of dollars is his release? Yep. It exposes everything. Yep. Like the campaign can then use it for however it wants. Like, you know what I mean? Yep. It's way more than $100 billion. I mean, we're talking about $1 trillion worth of evidence that destroys any candidate that the other side puts forward. Because guess who's on my deep state target list? America. Kamala Harris is on there. So is the entire Joe Biden criminal syndicate. So is the Hillary Clinton crew, right? So is Barry Hussein. It doesn't matter who they put forward, because every single person that they put forward is already on the list because they've already been identified as criminal co-conspirators. And wait, last time I checked, everyone that I've mentioned so far has a Twitter account that Elon Musk has access to all their DMs. And so it would be very safe for Elon Musk to just say, hey, I didn't disclose anything. All your privacy is protected. I was just complying with the lawful subpoena by the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, who has jurisdiction over my company. I had nothing to do with it, America.
Yeah.
Bam! They're fucked. All of them. They're so fucked.
Ivan, I love it. Ivan, Rob wants to ask one more question before we wrap up, and I appreciate you and your time.
I do have one question, Ivan. Earlier, we talked about 4 different assassinations. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Robert F. Kennedy, and JFK. Mark Twain said that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
It rhymes.
Who do you think, going into this election cycle, going into November, who are the 4 people? I'm going to guess 1 and 2 are Donald Trump and Elon Musk, but I'll give it to you to tell me. Who do you think are the 4 people who are the deep state's biggest targets going into November?
We just named them. I can give you 3. Oh,
give us your
Trump
top
one.
3. Give us your top
I would say
3.
Elon, in this order. Let me do it in order of import.
Okay.
Elon Musk, number 1.
Wow.
Over Trump.
The Attorney General of Texas, 2. And then tied for 3rd is going to be Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan.
Wow.
Now, so
you know why, right?
Is Trump 1? Just to be clear, so Trump 1, Elon 2, Ken Paxton 3, and then Tucker, Joe Rogan.
The
4.
reason why I don't say Trump 1 is because President Trump does not have the ability and authority himself to lay waste the deep state until he gets back into office.
Okay, got it.
He can only get back into office if those 3 individuals do what I'm recommending that they do.
Got it. Understood.
Number 1, Elon Musk, we discussed it ad nauseum, right? He's going to have to play ball with Ken Paxton. That's number 2. And then America will have to understand and learn what was just obtained for broader public consumption through, again, why is he number 1? Elon Musk has 190 million followers, okay?
Yeah.
But in a more broader, more detailed, more analytic content production framework, you have the following Texans that have an outsized influence to educate Texas. Alex Jones and Joe Rogan, both in Austin, just a few miles away from Ken Paxton. Once that education process of the entirety of the deep state cabal is disclosed to Texas and the broader, digital ecosystem, that's when we can then motivate all of the rest of the state's legislatures to hold their vote according to the state legislative vote, allocating those 274 electors to then the person that will become the number 1 feared target of the deep state once he's back in office. Oof. But it does not happen. I don't see it happening unless those first 3 or 4 do the following things into September 3rd. Because why September 3rd? everyone comes back into session. Congress is going to go into recess, not next week, but the following week in all of August. Whistleblowers are coming out left and right. The mother of all Twitter files, this is a subpoena, right? And so we're going to use this time frame, I would say from September 3rd to about the 15th, 16th, 17th, when early voting starts. I believe the 17th in some states, 45 days out, is when early voting starts. So you want the change in the manner in which the presidential and the vice presidential electors are allocated before that early voting starts, so that there's, so that we're coming into it clean, as opposed to like in mid-voting process trying to change the manner in which to elect and allocate those electors. So those 2 weeks should be then used to educate the country more broadly on the free speech platforms, X, Rumble, Truth, Telegram, Substack, etc., as we, in that process, bankrupt those organizations that were involved either wittingly or unwittingly in manipulating you into buying into the Biden criminal syndicate. I'm talking about Facebook, their subsidiary Instagarbage. We need to do everything in our power to bankrupt them. And it also will help out Elon Musk from a business perspective, because everybody is going to want to see the mother of all Twitter files on X in its original form. And that's how we start to help bankrupt those institutions that destroyed our constitutional order over these last 10 years. Hopefully that answers everything.
Ivan, man, I wish I could just stay here and talk to you for a couple more hours. You are not only a patriot. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, your service to the country. I think what you like, people talk the talk, Ivan, but you're actually walking the walk, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on Unusuals. I appreciate you more than you know.
I appreciate you. I mean, thanks for giving me this platform, because I have a small platform. The more we can educate the country, I think the faster we get to remedy. And it's not about like political partisan. I always say this: what's one thing worse than a Republican? Like, what's worse than a Republican? A Democrat. I despise all of them practically.
I feel you. And to be honest with you, Ivan, I believe I'm one of those uniparty guys where, don't get me wrong, there are some good ones. I understand. But it's to me as if, the Democrats get away with murder. The other side is there just to bark to give us the illusion that they're on our side. I just don't buy it.
Now it's up to us to step forward and fill the void.
Exactly.
There is a leadership void in this country, and people like us have to step forward. Until someone comes forward that has bigger influence, reach, that does the right thing, we have to be the forcing function.
I believe it. Ivan, God bless you, brother. Have a good one, and I will definitely be having you back on, Ivan.
Thanks, sir.
God bless, brother.
God bless.
Guys, thank you for being here. I think, guys, find Ivan. He's on Manect. Rob Gargiulo's on there. Kelly's on there. Guys, I wore the Angry Patriot. You guys know normally I wear a button-down shirt. I'm trying to be clean, but Angry Patriot shirt. Got the flag on this side. Future looks bright in the back. Guys, if you're like Ivan, if you're like me, guys, I wore this shirt to the VA today because I had an appointment for my back, and a guy just pointed at me, at my shirt, and goes, "Me too." And I was like, I didn't know what the hell, I don't know. I thought he knew me initially. I was like, PPD Podcast? No, he just liked the shirt. But guys, if you're a patriot, if you love this country, but you're just pissed off, if you're just upset, wear this. Trust me, wear it everywhere you go, meaning the mall, shopping, wherever you are, so other people know that you get this shirt means you get what's happening, and you're fed up with the BS, guys. At VTmerch.com. Kelly's going to put the link in the description. Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. Rob, I love you. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Kelly,
you.
Jake, everybody in the back, Jeremy, I love you guys. Guys, take care of each other. And like Ivan was saying, guys, it's up to us. Subscribe right now to the channel if you haven't. It's us. It's us against them. Peacefully, using the law and doing everything just to get our voices out there, because we cannot let them get away with this shit again. Be safe, and we will see you guys on Friday. I believe Roger Stone's coming on Friday, right, Kels? Peace and love. I'll see you guys later.